AYANEO has come up with an answer too. What if I want a handheld with a slide-out keyboard but don't want a GPD WIN 4? Let's see if their latest handheld, the AYANEO Slide, is the right or wrong choice as we unbox, run some system and gaming benchmarks and test emulator performance. Christmas time is a time of caring and sharing. Just one subscribe to DroiX can make a world of difference and keep the DroiX channel making review videos. Dave works tirelessly making videos every day, and your weekly likes can help videos just like this one gain popularity and reach a wider audience. Please give your subscribes and likes generously this Christmas and help our YouTube channel grow today. Thanks. First of all, I have to say the packaging is great. It is a VHS tape style box and design that keeps with the sliding theme. First in the box is the AYANEO Slide itself, which we will show in more detail shortly. There are some user guides inside the envelope. Inside the boxes we have a 65 watts charger, and there's UK and European plug adapters also included. There are two USB Type-C to Type-A adapters, and in the final box is a USB Type-C cable. The AYANEO Slide measures around 8.8 by 3.5 by 1.1 inches and weighs around 650 grams. The 6-inch IPS touchscreen has a 1080p resolution. All of the nerdy stats are on screen. In short, the screen is great quality, nice and bright and colours that pop out. The screen slides up to reveal the keyboard. It's a nice motion that snaps into place, though do slide it up and down from the middle and don't push it from the corner. When slid up, you can push the display from the back to get a 10 to 30 degree angle. It's useful for when resting it flat on a desk, for example. You have all the usual controls, including Hall effect sensor analogues, D-pad and gaming buttons. There are two additional buttons for the ISpace overlay. On the top we have shoulder buttons and Hall effect triggers. Beside those are macro buttons which can be customised in the software. Next is the power button with a built-in fingerprint sensor, and beside is the volume rocker and a USB Type-C port. On the bottom is a second USB 4 Type-C port and a covered micro SD card slot. Some comparisons with the GPD WIN 4. In terms of physical size, the Slide is slightly larger and heavier than the WIN 4. I could actually feel the Slide being heavier without checking, even though it's not a massive difference. The screen sizes are both 6-inch touchscreens and equally look very good. For the sliding mechanism, the AYANEO Slide wins hands down. It snaps into place, while with the WIN 4 you have to push it all the way manually. You also have the optional up to 30 degree angle on the slide, which is very useful. I have spent a lot of time with the WIN 4 playing games on it, and always enjoyed how comfortable it was to play on. The grips on the back of the slide are a little larger and feel slightly more comfortable to hold. Both, however, are great for gaming, so you won't miss out either way. The keyboards are roughly the same size and are slightly raised, giving a more tactile feel. The slides keys are a bit larger, making it easier to press. Both are backlit keys, but the Slide does have the advantage of RGB lighting, which you can customise. Both are perfect for brief typing with, but far too small to make any lengthy documents, for example. The AYANEO Slide uses the AMD Ryzen 7 7840U processor, which we have seen in many handhelds this year. It is currently the best processor for handheld gaming, as we will see later in the review. There's choices of 16, 32 or 64 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM and 512 gigs, 2TB or 4TB PCIe 4 SSD. For communications there's Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. Power in it all is a 46.2 Wh, 12,000 mAh battery. Whilst running the forthcoming benchmarks, we tested the battery life, fan noise and temperatures. We got a battery life of exactly 1 hour, which is on the lower end compared to other handhelds. We got a highest fan noise of 63 decibels and highest temperature of 46 degrees centigrade. As always, we run some benchmarks to compare the performance with other handhelds. We start with PC Mark, which runs a series of your more day-to-day usage benchmarks from web browsing to video editing and rendering. We got a score of 5,510, which is below the average, only beating the WIN Mini. For 3D Mark, we are running the Time Spy, Night Raid and Fire Strike benchmarks. We see for Time Spy it has the highest in all these comparisons, and amongst the highest in Night Raid and Fire Strike. Cinebench tests the single and multi-core performance of the processor. For single core, we see the lowest by a fair amount on the scores. We rerun the test and got a similar score again. However, for multi-core there are no such issues and got similar scores to the other devices. For the gaming benchmarks, we are testing at the highest resolution, which is 1080p at 28 watts TDP, and 720p at 5, 10, 15, 20 and 28 watts TDP. We will be comparing them with other devices which have the same resolutions. Please note that the other handhelds were benchmarked around 2 months ago, so they are using older graphics drivers, which can alter the results a little. For Forza Horizon 5, we run the benchmarks on the default very low graphics settings at their respective resolutions and TDPs. Overall, the scores are great. We see the highest frames per second with some TDPs and close to the highest on others. For Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we are running on the lowest graphic settings. On the lower TDPs we see very good scores, but as we go higher we do see the performance drop off a little compared to the others. For Street Fighter 6 we are pushing the devices by running on the maximum graphic settings. At 720p 28 watts TDP we see around average performance but a sharp dip on the fighting ground section. And at 1080p we see above average performance, but again there is a sharp dip on the fighting ground test. We did see similar patterns before in our test with other handhelds though. We have now moved over from Modern Warfare 2 to Modern Warfare 3, so unfortunately we do not have benchmark comparisons just yet. At 1080p minimal graphic settings with no FSR we get a nice 60 frames per second. Though I would recommend dropping it to 720p for a big increase in performance to 103 frames per second. We know from other handheld devices we have reviewed this year that the 7840U processor is great for emulation. All of your classic 8 and 16-bit through to PS1 and Dreamcast will run perfect, even allowing for 1080p rendering resolutions, or higher if outputting to an external display, as well as graphics tweaks for improved visuals. Let's take a look at some newer handhelds and consoles. The Citra emulator overall runs fairly well. You will see shader caching lags on some games the first time you play them, and on the second play the performance will be far smoother. Lower demanding games however play very well. For Vita 3K we tried a bunch of compatible games and they all worked great. You may see an occasional dip when shaders are caching, but nothing that breaks the gameplay. Not all games are compatible, but there is a compatibility list that will help you find out what works, etc. For the Yuzu and RyoDrinx emulators we see very good performance. Higher demanding games will have shader cache lags and lags in general, but for a current handheld it's decent going. We have seen PS3 emulation improve a great deal this year, and it's excellent on the AYANEO Slide as well. You will find many games running at full speed with no issues at all. Some will have initial shader cache lag and you may get a few games with lower performance, but overall it's very impressive. And for the Xbox 360 we see pretty good performance. There's a fair number of games that run full speed. High demanding games run fairly well also. Some games do have performance issues, but this is more due to compatibility than anything else. Time to sum things up now with my final thoughts. In the system and gaming benchmarks we did see a mix of high and low performance results. This can be in part down to different graphics drivers, especially knowing that AMD drivers fix one game and break another with each release. But overall the results were in line with the other handhelds, so that's all great. Again, with the emulation performance we saw no issues. Everything was pretty much in line with the other 7840U based handhelds. This processor is great for both retro gaming and more recent system emulators. The iSpace software revamp is coming along nicely. I don't use the launcher so much, but their overlay software is very good. I was using it regularly to change screen resolutions and the TDP settings and had no issues at all. This is where AYANEO stands out from other manufacturers with their software. GPD especially really needs to catch up here. So all in all, the AYANEO Slide is a great alternative to the GPD WIN 4 2023. Like the WIN 4, it is a perfect size for portability, comfortable to play on, and has the same excellent performance as the WIN 4 as well as other handhelds. Give it a serious consideration as a GPD WIN 4 2023 alternative. You can learn more about the AYANEO Slide and order yours today at DroiX.co.uk and DroiX.net. We currently have a sale on, so you can grab your gifts at bargain prices. Please do take a moment to subscribe and like if you have not already. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.